Hi, I'm JJ Davis. I lead Dell's public and policy marketing team. We're here in Washington, D.C. for our Dell Federal Symposium. And I'm so honored to be able to sit down with Suzette Kent. She's a former CIO of the federal government, has her own advisory firm, and is an advisor to Dell's federal business. We're going to talk for a few minutes with you today about modernizing government and the leadership chops that it takes to do that, and what advice Suzette has for current CIOs inside the federal government. So Suzette, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's been an exciting day.
Yes, absolutely. So do you mind telling our audience a little bit about yourself?
JJ said kind of the here and now. I was honored to serve as Chief Information Officer for the United States, and now I work across multiple companies. Like Dell, who are trying to solve some of the biggest problems that exist for the federal government. I've spent over 30 years in technology, both as a consultant in financial services, in the energy sector, and in government. And right now, those are some of the industries that have some of the most exciting challenges right now.
That's right. We know we need to modernize our federal government as a starting point. And so I want to start by talking about that. When you think about modernizing government and the impact that that can have on citizens, like where do you even start when you have such a large undertaking? I imagine it's a little overwhelming.
It can certainly be overwhelming. I know when I came into government, I was coming from financial services, which is another area that had a lot of legacy systems, and thought there would be a lot of similarities. I was really surprised by the number of legacy applications. We even have systems that were more than 50 years old inside the federal government. And the challenge now is not... Originally, it was the technology, right? How we could do it took a long time, and it was expensive, and you needed so many additional resources. Now, with the advancement of tools and AI and code assisting, that's not the question anymore. But modernizing still does take people who understand the mission. It takes the focus, and it takes funding. Yeah. It also takes a commitment to change the workforce, because they're going to do the work different, and to re-engineer the processes, not just move from kind of thing A to thing B, but to really reimagine how we do work. And it's those things, not the technology, that are actually harder. And inside many federal agencies, they strive to be great stewards of taxpayer dollars. So they can't do everything at once. And it's the question of priorities. And so how you get it done, so you focus on those things that impact the mission of the area first. And you have to sometimes keep that scope really narrow so that you get it done and then move on to the next thing.
What is an example of something inside government that's maybe been modernized under your leadership in the past, or a current example that citizens, taxpayers might not fully appreciate or understand?
Yeah, well, so many of the things that we do with cybersecurity have actually been modernized, and that's where we use some of the most advanced tools. And what you see in the headlines is when something goes wrong, or when there's a breach, or what you don't see is the millions and millions of times a day that it goes right. And what is actually done. It's one of the things that behind the scenes, when it works well, nobody really knows that it's there. Some of the resiliency tools that we have. We're also seeing success in things that support automation of kind of back office, customer service, language translation. And right now, we're seeing a resurgence, or I shouldn't say a resurgence, a new level of energy around how technology comes into the government, meaning how we look at it and look at controls and security, how we verify identity. And those are things that are important to the hygiene of how we do things and how the government itself operates. But every day, citizens really aren't thinking about that. They just want it to work.
They just want it to work. Do you have an example of something that's moved beyond pilot phase, that's in the area of automation or AI within the government that we experience every day but might not even know it?
Most recently have been things where the pace has changed. Something that used to take 3 or 4 weeks, getting done in 3 days. And people are really surprised. What they don't understand is that that is using AI.
Yeah.
In many cases, that's what's actually happening behind the scenes. So whether it is an approval for a government benefit, or it is some type of permitting, or it is places where somebody is applying, for something, and that used to be paper.
Yeah.
It was passed around. Even things like approving projects and budgets, places where we are using AI tools to check for accuracy, to move the workflow, more quickly, or to reimagine how that workflow could be done better. The outcome is a faster process with less errors.
And especially when you think about tasks that need to be repeatable and done at scale, it might free up the people to do more critical work and be more innovative every day.
Well, I think in many of the cases where we are using AI, one project that was fairly well publicized was something that they were doing inside the IRS, where we had a backlog that what potentially was going to take more than a year to resolve. They applied an AI tool and were able to clear that backlog in a couple of months. What the impact, the people impact internally, was that instead of the workforce concentrating on all those little pieces of paper, they were concentrating on the things that didn't fit in the AI, the really complicated things, the things that took the human subject matter knowledge that those individuals had gained, over years of actually doing the process, right? The very unique cases. And I think that's how we are seeing work shift, is that the deep expertise and the mission expertise is still needed for understanding the anomalies that aren't every day, and for also understanding and identifying risks, and then for monitoring the performance of where we choose to apply AI.
So I want to transition to leadership, because it takes really strong leadership to drive this kind of modernization and transformation inside our government. What would you advise leaders as they think about, speed versus security, or customization versus standardization, and the trade-offs every day as a CIO that you have to make so that you can modernize and make those important impacts?
Well, it's a great question. I think what CIOs in government today, what they have to trade off might be a little bit different.
Okay.
What they have to trade off is which projects they actually focus on.
Okay.
Meaning, they have to have security. They have to go fast, fast as possible, on everything. They have to manage the risk. And there's never a shortage of opportunities for improvement. What they have to do, though, to drive mission impact is to communicate very clearly inside their own agency, to their vendor partners, to maybe the stakeholders that they're serving, to the budget team, to their congressional supporters. What are they trying to do? How are they going to get that done? How can success be measured? Where they are on that progress? All of those things. And really do that almost relentlessly.
Yeah.
And they also have to be the person who helps remove barriers.
Right.
It's really hard sometimes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of steps in government. Sometimes those are needed. They're needed to ensure that we're doing things accurately and fairly and clearly. But sometimes they take a lot longer. And there are times, too, to say, why are we doing this like this, right? This law was written in the 80s. This is not, we're not using technology like it was as then. So is there opportunity to improve? So leaders have to be clear. They have to communicate publicly around what those expectations are, and they have to engage the people in the entire process, from acquisition all the way through operationalize and sustaining something.
And they have to be bought in, and that you can only do that if your communications. That's right. And even inside of a company, and a big company like ours, we have been simplifying, standardizing, automating our processes before we can even get to the AI application.
Yes.
And that was a really big leadership decision and some change that we drove. And it's been a long process, but we will be much better for it and be able to move much faster. And it takes that discipline. So you talked about partnership and what makes a good partner. And I think some of it is just open sharing of information.
Yes.
What would you say makes a really valuable partner to the federal government?
Yeah. I know one of the things that I valued is when partners would come in and one, they understood the mission that I was trying, on which, we were trying to deliver, whatever agency, that was. And we started with that. But it was also valuable when they brought their expertise, not just from federal markets, but from all the markets that they serve. And that, they listened to the problem that we were trying to solve, but could also bring experiences, both the positive things, right? Because anytime you're having a sales discussion, everybody's going to tell you about the great things,
right?
But also the things to be aware of, the things that were challenges and maybe pitfalls, or the risks and how those risks were mitigated. Often in federal practices, they're very different from the commercial sector, but that's not the same way that kind of work has been approached in some cases. So that was extremely valuable. I also mentioned one other thing of how to take the work and break it into chunks where you can show results. Helps sometimes to manage risk, but in the cycle of government, when things are sometimes done on a yearly basis and people change, turnover, and there's also an expectation of what are you doing? Show me progress.
Right.
How you organize the work to demonstrate consistent progress and sustainable progress is also different. And so partners, when they bring that to the table, are extremely helpful. And partners who bring both that advice and connections of, here's how you mitigate the risks. Here's what to do, but maybe here's what not to do.
Right.
Those were all valuable, to their federal partners. And the last thing I'll say, kind of the way that we started, partners that are not just there for a transaction, they're there for the evolution, the continuous mission, whatever it is, and they stay involved not only with getting something particularly done, but how it's running, how it's operating, what's next.
Everything in government is mission-based and for the citizens.
Yes.
Well, that aligns with our core values as a company as well, because we exist to create technologies that advance human progress. And we can do that in partnership with government, which is really why we're all here today. One last question.
Yes.
If you were to give advice to a current CIO or focus them in on one thing, especially as things are progressing so quickly and AI is changing every day, what would that be?
The thing that I do talk to some of the CIOs about, we've touched on it through some of the questions, is focus on delivering mission impact and find that thing that is important in your agency, important to the agency secretary, important to the people that you serve, and ensure that you're communicating clearly, setting the goals and objectives, and you're eliminating all the other noise around other things. I sometimes felt when I was federal CIO, I had a short list. I had a short list of things that were, the priorities of the administration. They were important for many reasons. And part of my job was not only making sure that agencies were executing on those things, but also that the rest of the noise, that those barriers were eliminated. And so, for many of the CIOs, it's focus and alignment. And sometimes in some agencies, they are side by side with the agency leadership and the agency secretary, and they're helping enable the mission. Sometimes those relationships were different. Somebody came in and the technology team was working, off on something, previous, and there was some work for alignment and making sure that all the pieces work. Again, the procurement, the workforce, the oversight requirements, how you're spending your money and how you're communicating with those who manage ongoing funding, and most importantly, the constituents that you are serving, making sure that they're clearly engaged. There's no shortage of things to do.
Right.
pick the ones that matter.
And stay focused
and
on those.
stay relentlessly focused on those, and bring everyone on the journey with you.
Yeah, really critical to get aligned if you're going to drive really serious change.
Because most of it's complicated.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Complicated.
Frequent communication. And we hope you will frequently join us back here for more conversations. Thank you for being a public servant and for sharing your wisdom and expertise with us and all of our viewers. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We hope you'll check out the public playlist frequently for more stories, expertise. We hope you'll share your own and engage. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.